And we're live.
This is the CrackBerry podcast for Sunday, April 9th, 2017.
Woo, Simon, you're sounding beautiful.
Hey, I used to podcast a bunch.
Right?
Yeah, well before the Mobile Nations days.
Hey, everybody. I totally messed that up, but basically, we're just getting things started up here, and I want to welcome everybody to this week's podcast. And as you can tell, I am joined this week by the one and only Simon Sage, who unfortunately last week didn't have the best audio, but we got him sorted this week, and we got him tip top, so everything is sounding pretty good.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. With YouTube, you never really know. Basically, it was a little bit of a short week this week, so we wanted to just go ahead and get things kicked off here, and do a quick run through of the news as it is Sunday and everything. Unfortunately, Kevin is currently traveling right now, so he won't be joining us. So
jet setter that he is.
Yeah, exactly. You're stuck with me inside. With that being said, we do have the live chat going on the YouTube channel. So, of course, if you make your way over there, if you have any questions or anything like that, make sure that you drop them in there so that we can get them answered up for you at some point in time throughout the broadcast. Basically, for the news and everything, I think it's probably best that we just jump right into it this week, Simon. Like I said, it was pretty light in terms of news, but there was a lot of stuff coming directly from Chen, which is interesting. One of the very first topics that came up was an article that we titled "What Happens When BlackBerry Gobbles Up Your Startup," and basically it's an article, a story about Watch Dogs, a developer who basically worked at Watch Dogs. And his name was, I'm probably going to butcher it, but forgive me if I do. His name is Yuri Shakit. And basically, he came to work at BlackBerry as part of the Watch Dogs acquisition that happened, basically, I think it was like 2 years ago now, in April. And I don't know if you read the article as of yet, Simon, but it's a really good post that's on Medium. And his actual title for the article is "I work for BlackBerry. Yes, they still exist."
At least he's got a sense of humor about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's even like a video clip where it's just nothing but like clips of him saying, "Yes, I work for BlackBerry. Yes, they still exist." But it was an interesting post mainly because we don't generally when companies go through their acquisition phase, we don't necessarily really hear like a lot of the behind the scenes stories unless they're really bad. That's usually when you hear like bad acquisition stories and stuff like that. But this one was a really interesting behind the scenes look at what happens, or what happened in this case when BlackBerry took over. And it goes through the whole process of explaining why BlackBerry exists and what they do, and it was really a lot of information that was packed in there. And of course, it wasn't sponsored or endorsed by BlackBerry. It was just a BlackBerry employee wanting to basically tell the world about everything. And it was a really good read. It should take you like 10 minutes if you haven't read it as of yet. It's a really good perspective on BlackBerry and how the process of acquisitions and stuff really happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through it right now, and I do like that he's going into BlackBerry's history of acquisitions, because BlackBerry just kind of quietly gobbles up companies at a pretty standard clip, right? Even when you'd imagine that their finances might not necessarily give them the wiggle room for this sort of thing. It's really key to maintaining that forward momentum, especially now that they're reframing the whole company, and they aren't necessarily on like a hiring spree, but they do need to like maintain like a strong base in software. So I'm thinking back to like acquisitions like the Astonishing Tribe, Docs2Go, QNX is I think probably the biggest one that still is front and foremost. Vigo, way back. Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah,
Here.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to love that app. It
and,
was totally one of my favorites.
There's a good technology too, right? Like that was for a long time their primary competitor. So I think BlackBerry still stands a good shot at like being able to consolidate a lot of businesses that maybe can't really hack it on their own necessarily. That they might need a bigger company to shelter them a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned good technologies, because I mean, what QNX was a big acquisition for them, but it kind of like came out of nowheres, right? Like at that point in time, QNX was only known to a small subset of users and everything, and it wasn't exactly it was a huge acquisition at the time. But I think the one that really caught essentially the most attention was the good acquisition, because that kind of, you know, they were arguing with good for many months before they actually designed them. They had blog posts telling you why good was no good, right? And you know, it kind of came out of nowhere. And when you really think about it, I think good technologies is probably what kind of set them up for pretty much like their software platform move in a way, because when you look at the landscape of what is powering, you know, BlackBerry UEM and all that right now, it's all dynamics, it's all basically all previously good stuff. And they didn't just buy technology when they bought good technology. They bought like a subset of users as well, because you know, at that point in time, before they bought good, BlackBerry they were starting in the process to say, yeah, we're going cross-platform. Like they had that plan mapped out and everything like that, but it really came into effect after they purchased good technology, because of the fact that, you know, they bought basically iOS users at that point in time and integrated them into their system. And as we now know, that really worked out really good for them, because like I said, it basically laid a lot of the groundwork and foundation for what we know as BlackBerry UEM right now. So it's interesting. I'm kind of curious, because I think John Chen basically said that he was going to start looking towards picking up some more companies. It might have been in one of the most recent interviews that he was mentioning the possibility of that. There was a period of time where they slowed down. So it'd be interesting to see in the future if they, you know, pick up some more of those smaller companies or anything like that. I think the last company that they picked up might have been Encryption. Maybe I have my timeline messed up, but it'll be interesting to see if they move forward with some of that stuff. Speaking of John Chen, well, there's a lot to actually talk about John Chen this week.
He's had a busy week.
Definitely had a busy week, that's for sure. He was named Executive of the Year by Ascend Canada. Basically, Ascend Canada covers, they hand out annual leadership awards, and John Chen was among the 5 individuals recognized at the gala celebrations for the awards on, I believe it was April 4th. And the event, the award itself was sponsored by TD, and of course they give you the standardized quoting of what John Chen is being recognized for, of course, and the award recognizes an individual who has made outstanding contributions to their organization, delivering business results, demonstrating leadership, and being at the forefront of innovation. And to go along with that, we kind of got a little bit of an exclusive video that was really interesting to watch, because it's basically a video highlighting BlackBerry employees discussing John Chen's leadership and stuff like that. It was a really kind of like a behind the scenes video. They actually showed the video before with the award. So for John to go ahead and share that with us, to be able to go ahead and post it, was really appreciated, because I don't think that we would have gotten the opportunity to see it otherwise.
one thing that kind of strikes me about John Chen's position is that it's got to be hard, right? You know,
Oh yeah.
I mean, for years, BlackBerry's been kind of the underdog, but the thing that always brings me back to a level of respect for BlackBerry, you know, how it's being led is by taking a look at the other companies that were born out of the same era as BlackBerry. You take a look at Motorola or Palm or Nokia, and where are they now? You know, some of them have changed hands twice already, and BlackBerry is still operating independently. Now, obviously, they aren't at like the peak heights that they were, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. But the fact that they're still around it and they're still changing and adapting intelligently, I think says volumes to how the company's being led.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know that there's a lot of people out there that, you know, you see the comments and stuff like that. They always have a little bit of a detest for John Chen, and basically thinking that, you know, he killed BlackBerry 10 or it's no longer BlackBerry anymore. But I mean, when you really have to put it in perspective, like what were the options and what were the ways to go at that point in time. And I think there's plenty of people out there who don't necessarily give John Chen the credit that he deserves for turning around BlackBerry in the way that he did. You know, just because you don't have the hardware solution in the exact same way that maybe you wanted it to be, doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, he did it wrong or anything like that. I mean, the numbers are pretty much telling the story. He turned them around to have a nice positive balance sheet and everything like that. The company's stabilizing and continuing to grow and expand, right? So, like you said, when you take a look at a lot of companies from that exact same era, I don't think it's hard to say that, you know, BlackBerry's still independent and sort of like maybe not necessarily, you can't really put like a leadership example on them, but you can say that they've come out better than some of the others within that industry. So it kind of bugs me when people leave negative comments about John Chen, because you don't know what happened behind the scenes or anything like that, right? So you know, what position was he in? I mean, you have to at least consider where the position that he came from as well, because, you know, BlackBerry didn't get in the shape that they were in previously overnight. You know, nobody's going to turn around that ship overnight either. So, you know, the fact that BlackBerry's still BlackBerry is pretty remarkable in its own.
I don't think the big unpopular decisions he may have made, you know, in terms of platforms or the hardware division or anything like that, came about lightly. You know, I certainly think that they were hard decisions. You know, that wasn't just like the BlackBerry hardware division. That was a lot of people's jobs too, right? You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Chen's done a lot of downsizing, and these people, you know, poured a healthy chunk of their lives into this company and you know, these products. So. It's a big thing to make those kinds of decisions, and certainly not easy. I can't imagine making those kinds of calls.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, that's what I mean when I, like, people say you have to look at the other side of the coin, right? Because, you know, you don't know what that position is. You don't know the weight that he has to carry, like knowing that he had to like fire 500 employees or whatever the scenario, right? It's unfathomable to have a truly negative sentiment just for that, because it's I mean, everybody's entitled to feel the way that they feel, but at least take the opportunity to go ahead and look at the situation, right?
Yeah.
In addition to winning the award, and especially like if you guys haven't checked out the video yet, make sure that you go check out the video on CrackBerry, because it was a really, really good video, and it basically, you know, it shows you that people within BlackBerry really do like John Chen too. I mean, he's done a lot for the company, whatever, in that scenario. So make sure that you check out that video. The other thing that came up in surrounding John Chen at this point was that he made a blog post on the Inside BlackBerry blogs, and within the U.S., there's new FCC legislation that got signed in, which deals with privacy and your web browser history. Companies can sell your web browser history and all that stuff. Obviously, that's the shortened version of it, because when I get into FCC legislation and stuff like that, I kind of start to doze off. But he made a post and to highlight that BlackBerry's privacy policy hasn't necessarily changed in regards to this new information or this new legislation that has been put out there, and he's really quick to the point, and that's something that a lot of the companies that have come across the situation have been stating as well, like internet providers, ISPs, and stuff like that have been coming out and saying that, you know, this legislation means nothing in regards to how we operate. We're not changing our privacy policies or anything like that. They're sort of just maintaining the status quo, and that was what John Chen wanted to go ahead and make sure that people were aware of as well. You know, basically the privacy policy that BlackBerry has always had is going to remain. And the biggest quote from the article, I guess, at least from my perspective, to be able to go ahead and share the information with everybody, is we make it our business not to know your business, right? So it's one of those things where a lot of people are, you know, there's rising concerns about privacy these days, even at the basic level, because there has been so many hackings and so many, you know, attempts on like breaking into accounts and everything else that has happened. Even my mom is starting to worry about, like, is her Facebook account okay? I'm like, nobody wants to see your Facebook account anyways. Don't worry about it. But, you know, it's a rising thing these days, security on the internet. And, you know, basically John Chen wanted to go ahead and put this post out there to reassure everybody that BlackBerry's stance on privacy has not changed. So if you haven't read that, make sure that you go ahead and give it a look. Obviously, you and I are both in Canada, Simon, and we don't necessarily kind of have to worry about this stuff, but we have our own problems in that area. What do you think about, like, going through some of the comments and stuff like that? You know, basically I read like, well, how can they protect your privacy if they're using Google and Android and so on and so forth? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, it always seems to come up. So
yeah, I think the logic that they were using around that legislation was that you know, why do companies like Google and Facebook get to kind of acquire user data for the sake of advertising, but ISPs don't? So like Verizon or, you know, Rogers up here, or, you know, like proper internet companies. And, you know, that's, in theory, that should have been the time for the net neutrality experts to kind of step in and say, well, there's a bunch of reasons why we don't do things that way. But, you know, when you take a look at Verizon, for example, they have, you know, in addition to being an internet service provider, you know, they also own AOL, right? Like they own companies that have vested interest in advertising. That's what you call vertical integration, and we've got that in Canada too by way of Rogers. You know, they own all sorts of media companies and entertainment companies. So it certainly seems like potentially a little bit of a conflict of interest, especially if there are no safeguards in place, right? If an ISP can just do complete dragnet style data gathering without anybody keeping an eye on, like, well, is this information you really need? Then that's a problem, right? And it's certainly the kind of thing that Google and Facebook have kind of engendered a culture towards, like, all right, we can only hold on to data for so long, et cetera, et cetera. But will ISPs hold on to, set the same standards? And I suppose the other thing is, you know, at what point do government surveillance agencies start getting interested, depending on how long ISPs are holding on to that data? It's a whole can of worms, right? There's a whole lot of very good reasons why ISPs should not be hanging on to this data.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I mean, it's one of those things where I'm consciously aware of it all the time too. When I like, because even though it's not necessarily 110% protection, I generally use a VPN or some sort of security layer between me and my ISP. Like I don't use their DNS or anything like that. Even though I know that that doesn't necessarily offer the best of protection, I could be protecting myself more, but it's still, I want to make things harder for them.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, to be fair, like as content creators, we're pretty much steeped in the advertising business too, right?
Yeah.
And like whenever I watch cable TV, and it's like, why am I looking at an ad in the middle of this show that has absolutely nothing to do with my interests?
Yeah.
It gives me a little bit of appreciation for, oh, internet advertising is so much better than radio or TV.
At least it's a little bit more targeted, right?
Yeah. To that extent, I kind of appreciate our position and have a little bit of flexibility in terms of like how much information advertisers are gathering about me.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like oh wait, to be honest, those weren't the words that we covered last episode.
You're a liar.
I'm a liar, damn it. But we use a lot of services, excellent services, absolutely for free. Even our sites, CrackBerry, Android Central, all those guys, Google, Facebook. These exist exclusively because of online advertising and because companies are able to monetize data itself that people normally wouldn't really think twice about sharing. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but I suppose it also depends on, like, if ISPs are getting on this advertising bandwagon too, will we see equal gains in service, right? Like, will internet service be cheaper because they can earn revenue on user data?
Yeah,
one would hope, maybe.
Yeah, one would hope, but I don't know if that necessarily trickles down. Probably gets more expensive because they're pushing more data at that point.
Yeah, it's true.
Something along those lines.
On the subject of privacy, you guys may want to check out the latest Modern Dad video. He actually runs through encryption and privacy options for Android and iOS. So those are actually really good for family scenarios, as you might guess. If you have less tech savvy family members that aren't sure whether or not they need this level of encryption, check out Modern Dad's YouTube channel. He runs through a lot of good options.
Yeah, he also has a great password video too. So I forget the title of it, but you'll find it definitely on the channel if you check out Modern Dad. It walks you through some of the best options for using your passwords and systems that can help you manage your passwords, which is obviously something that is increasingly important. Speaking of importance, BlackBerry has begun their April Android security updates. So basically, devices that are running BlackBerry software will start seeing the April Android security update appearing. With those Android updates, of course, they do bring you the latest security patches and everything. And if you do update to this one, your security patch level is set at April 1st, 2017 or later. Keep in mind, something that always comes up is like people say that, well, I don't have it on my device. Well, keep in mind, if you bought your device directly from BlackBerry, chances are you're probably going to get it quicker than any carrier at that point. So if you're not seeing it as of yet, you're going to have to just keep on checking back and making sure that it does eventually arrive. BlackBerry does have really good credentials when it comes to pushing the updates out, even though the carriers do sometimes lag behind. I believe we covered it maybe 2 weeks ago, but it has recirculated somehow in the news that Google recognized BlackBerry for their ability to go ahead and get updates out quicker. So I don't expect anything to change in that area. Just make sure that you check for your software updates if you have them available, and then get them installed. And what else did we have this week? All right. Speaking of Kevin, Kevin did up a really cool video for the BlackBerry KeyOne keyboard, and and the smartest smartphone keyboard is what he titled the article. And basically he tells you that your keyboard is dumb, and here is why, as he runs through all of the great features that are included on the BlackBerry KeyOne keyboard. Basically, it's a really good video, a really informative video, to get an idea of what sort of functionality that you can expect directly from the KeyOne in regards to the keyboard, because of the fact that it does use that smart keyboard. You know, the programmable shortcuts, the ability to go ahead and just, you know, swipe words away, all stuff that we have kind of sort of seen previously on devices, but with it being on a KeyOne and the KeyOne being such an awesome device, of course, you can expect a little bit more from it at that point. You checked out the video, right, Simon? Anything stand out as really great to you other than the keyboard fingerprint sensor? That's what stands out to me, is like the fingerprint sensor. I really dig that in the keyboard.
Yeah, and honestly, it's long overdue that BlackBerry has a fingerprint sensor for a company that's like is so intent on like authentication and security. I felt like BlackBerry should have had a fingerprint sensor a long time ago. But when he was just running through the general behavior, you know, there's stuff like the swipe typing that I was already kind of familiar with. You know, BlackBerry's had that since BB10 launch. But swiping downwards on the keyboard for like accents and extra characters wasn't something that I knew about. So I'm really eager to try that out and see if like that'll actually fit into my typing flow.
Yeah, it's really good. Basically, obviously, I've gotten hands-on with it enough times between you know, the meetups and being at the launch and everything like that. One thing that, like I said, the fingerprint sensor is really the highlight for me. My DTAC 60, of course, had it, but it's on the back, which is kind of, you know, it's great that BlackBerry included it at that point in time. But the fact that it's on the back, it feels kind of weird that was introduced on a device that doesn't have a keyboard, when it just seems like natural progression for it to actually be in the keyboard. But one thing I want to say about it is that I've tried a lot of phones that have a fingerprint sensor in them, and I don't know, man, that one just really works. It's really fast. I know other devices have a fast fingerprint sensor too, but some of them have been kind of slow and some of them have been, you know, really quick. But you barely even have to touch the fingerprint sensor on that one, and it works appropriately. But
yeah, they're getting really good. I think the biggest caveat for me on the Priv is the positioning. You know, a lot of say Samsung devices, they tend to be like around the same spot. Yeah. I find I tend to prefer the ones that put the fingerprint sensor on the back. And I think that really depends on your use case. A lot of people will most often be unlocking their phone when it's laid down at their desk beside them throughout the day, and they don't necessarily want to pick it up. They just want to like hand down the thumb on it and see what's up. Personally, when I'm going to be checking my phone, I'm picking it up because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be typing or swiping through or stuff like that. So it's I suppose it's a bit of a matter of preference.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I think about the majority of times that I use my fingerprint sensor, I always, at least on my DTAC 60, I'd always wish that it was like on the front so that I didn't have to pick it up. So I'm one of the ones who falls into that category where it's great to have it on the front itself. So
I suppose it depends how huge your hands are too. Like it's kind of a non-issue for me.
Yeah. Yours are huge, and mine. I consider mine huge, and yours are huger than mine, which is crazy. So I think other than that, that was pretty much the roundup of news that we had for this week. I haven't been following along in the, well, I have, but I haven't at the same time in the chat. So I don't know if there was any questions that popped up at this point for it, but you guys still have a few moments. If you guys don't have any questions, then
I think we've got one here. Any word on the uneven backlighting on the keyboard for the KeyOne? Will that be addressed in the production units?
Yeah, that has, as far as I know, that's basically one of the items that came up throughout Barcelona, and it's one of those things that came up during Barcelona. It was a known issue at the time in Barcelona and has since been corrected. Like on some of Kevin's demo units now. Anybody who has gone hands-on with them, there may have been one that you saw that had the uneven backlighting, but going forward, that uneven backlighting has been addressed accordingly. So I don't think if you're still worried about that, then it's probably not something to worry about. You can let it go at this point because it has, as far as I know, been taken care of and addressed.
Cool. John is asking, here it is, has Kevin set up any more meetups?
No, he hasn't set any meetups, but he does have some lined up. He hasn't officially announced some of them, but I know that he's working his way through to be able to go ahead and see where the next locations are, because he's kind of grounded at the moment. Actually, he's on his way to, he's in New York right now, so I don't know where or if he's going anywhere after that, but I do know that he does have a few things to sort out, and then hopefully we can get back to the meetups as expected.
They're a ton of fun. If you do get wind that there's a meetup happening like within arm's reach of you, go to them. I've been to two. I've been to the Toronto one and the New York one, and on the one hand, there's just the sheer satisfaction of meeting the people who read our sites day in and day out. It's working from home. You get to kind of see it abstractly, and you see the comments and you get tweets coming in, but to actually meet the people is super rewarding for me personally. And more broadly, I think it's just great to see so many people willing to put in the effort to come together and like be really, really excited about the next device. So they've both been really great, really relaxed meetups, and Kevin has a hard time not giving away devices as I use. So
that doesn't surprise me.
You have a good chance at winning one if you show up to one of these events.
That's always awesome. December away. I think that's December away, or at least it's short for December away. Any thoughts on keyboard break-in? I don't know. Here's the thing about keyboard break-in is that off the line, a lot of the keyboards, they have their own sort of like feel to them. Like the Passport took a little bit of time to be able to go ahead and get used to. I mean, every keyboard has a little bit of a difference. And for me, the Priv keyboard was kind of like one of those things where I never essentially really got used to it. But BlackBerry 10 devices and even BlackBerry OS devices, they all had a little bit of a break-in period. And the thing that might be difficult for some people, and I'm not saying all people, I'm just saying some people, is that when if you're currently a DTEC 60 user, or if you're using like a DTEC 50, or even if you have a Priv and you don't really use the keyboard that often, or you've gotten really, really familiar with that keyboard, I think making the transition to the KeyOne is probably going to be one of the easiest transitions, especially like from any of the previous devices that were out there, because of the fact that the keyboard's right there. It's nice. It's a perfect size, at least in my opinion, for big hands, small hands, medium-sized hands, whatever the case may be. And I don't know, it's just really, really comfortable to type on. It doesn't feel like, I always hated the little teeny tiny keyboards that just felt like you were typing on Tic Tacs, and it doesn't necessarily feel like that. Although it may look like that in the pictures don't really do the device justice, in my opinion. They don't, at least when it comes down to the keyboard level. I mean, the hardware looks great in pictures, but at the keyboard level, it doesn't show very well in pictures. You really kind of do have to get hands-on with it and feel it out, and basically, I mean, you'll get used to it.
Yeah, my general impressions from typing on it were that the keys were a fair bit softer than what I'm used to, compared to the last BlackBerry that I used, seriously, what was the Passport, and I certainly find that the KeyOne keys are They float a little bit higher, so I think that the key travel is pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're just a little bit squishier, which is nice.
Yeah, they said that it's similar to the classic feel, and I would probably agree with that. No, I didn't use the classic for a long period of time after the review period because it just didn't fit my interest at that point. But it does feel similar to the classic keyboard for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that KeyOne comfort levels are better than the Priv and the Passport, but maybe not quite up there with the Q10 and the Classic. Q10 and Classic still feel to me like the best BlackBerry keyboard to date.
Yeah, exactly. Will the KeyOne have picture passwords? What I can tell you, here's the thing about that is that one thing you have to consider is that when we have Kevin has his units, and they're all based on pre-production software and stuff like that. What I can tell you is that right now, picture password is in there and it does work. But does it make it to the final software? I don't know. So that's the best answer that I can give, because you do have to take under consideration that the devices that Kevin does have is like not complete. So that's all I can say on that.
Picture passwords where you like tap and swipe on a picture to unlock, right?
Right. And the reason why that question comes up is because the DTEC 50 or 60 doesn't have it. I believe it's the DTEC 50. The DTEC 50 doesn't have it, while the Priv did, and then they put it back on the DTEC 60. It's kind of like a weird scenario, almost like the processor couldn't handle it or something like that. I don't know if that's the exact reasoning for it. I'm just making stuff up at this point, but it's not there on the DTEC 50 for some unknown reason. So
it's an interesting unlock mechanism. I mean, the Facebook app on my iPad keeps harassing me to enable it, and I don't care. It's like, just no, I can use a PIN number if I'm really that worried about it.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way about it. I've never actually used it though. Like, I've never set it and left it on that. Like, I know it's there, I know it exists, and I just don't use it because the password, the PIN is the password for me. So I think that's about it. I'm pretty, we wanted to go ahead and make sure that we kept things short because of the news cycle and everything like that. But I think that's a wrap. How'd we do, Simon?
I think we did all right. I mean, we'll leave it to the watchers to decide how awful we were, but that was good. That was a lot of fun.
Other than my screwed up beginning, but
that's fine.
We did it. All right, guys. For this one, you can find me on Twitter @Blizz, and you can find me on Instagram @Blizz, and of course, you can find me on CrackBerry.com. Simon, let the people know where they can find you as well.
I am on Facebook and Instagram as Simon Sage, probably more on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter. Don't tweet that often, but they can hit me up there too.
All right, sounds good. Listen, guys, we appreciate you all tuning in, and hopefully we'll be back next week. We've been doing really good with the scheduling, even minus some people, of course, obviously. But see you guys next week. Take care.